Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the pod. I am your host once again, Eric, and I'm joined in studio by my lovely wife and co-host, Ashley.
Hey, guys.
All right. And now we're finally going to kick it off with a Book It pizza party. So I hope you're ready for this one. So we've been very busy over the past year here with both narrating and reading books. So we figured it'd be a good time to kind of do, dive into like a book-centered topic podcast episode.
Yeah, and I mean, a Book It pizza party is the best kind of pizza party.
Absolutely. And this is just the beginning of the party, so we'll have many more episodes in the future here.
Well, because you always talk about how much of an avid reader I am.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, reading books is one of my favorite hobbies, so this is a good topic for me.
Absolutely. So, and obviously, like I said, because I'm a narrator for Audible, I mean...
Shameless plug.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get to that in a little bit here. But now, the one topic, because you've recently joined BookTok.
I did.
Yeah, and got over 1,000 subscribers at this point, climbing close to 2,000. So that's what I mean. It's been very rapid growth for you on that one. So, but how you liking it so far?
I really, honestly, I'm enjoying it because that's one of the reasons I want to do this episode. Because, like with BookTok, I've discovered so many more books, so many more authors.
Yeah,
and we could talk more about that a little bit later on if you wanted to.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I've really enjoyed doing it, even though I know some people might think making TikToks is cringy. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, because it's got such a big following and it's a huge community that's really supportive, more so than what you notice on other platforms. So, which I think is very interesting. How TikTok seems to be more, camaraderie in a lot of ways.
Well, BookTok definitely has its ugly moments that I have found out since being on it, but I mean, for the most part, it's been super supportive.
There's a lot of communities that are like that too. Yeah. So once again, but sometimes you have to take the good with the bad in a lot of those situations. But it all depends on the situation. Hey, so
title drop. So where to begin?
Oh my gosh. Well, the one thing was kind of like a point of contention that I noticed was on BookTok was their talk of your total number of books you've read in a given year. And honestly, I couldn't tell you a number because growing up, reading wasn't a big central thing with me, even though I grew up in a reading household. My dad was a sports editor. My mom was a transcriptionist, so we always had words flying around. But it wasn't until I became a narrator that I realized, hey, I just narrated 21 books, so that's my record. I've read 21 books in a year.
See, I have never kept track until I started posting on TikTok, because in 2024, I read 36 books, which...
That's impressive.
But then I see so many other people that read over 100.
How?
I mean,
that's just crazy reading abilities.
I mean, if you can do that, that's really awesome.
Oh yeah, fast reading.
I mean, I
envy that.
I probably could read more if I didn't doom scroll so much. But yeah, I set a goal for 2025. I want to read 50.
Yeah.
And I'm at 13 right now.
Dang.
So
I mean, well on your way.
On my way, I guess.
Yep. It's only February, too. Well, technically, it's March now.
Yeah, today's March.
March 1st, and we're recording this, so.
But I thought we could start talking about, since we talk about a lot of nostalgic things on here. So back when you were a kid, or when we were kids, thinking, what were some of our favorite books that we read when we were kids?
Yep. The one that comes to me was probably The Hatchet. So that's one that I really enjoyed reading that book. I ended up buying that thing, I think, in the past year here, just because, we were talking about it a little bit, and it's it'd be kind of nice to kind of dive back into that. But I didn't realize there were so many extra sequels. I think that's part of a 5-book set that I still haven't read. I've read the first 3, but I haven't read the 4th and the 5th one yet. So I got to get on that.
Well, did your mom and dad ever read to you when you were a kid?
Yes.
Or when you were little?
They did. Well, I remember specifically Mom used to read me 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. During Christmas time was really special to me. So those are good childhood memories. But as far as bigger novels and things like that, not really.
So when I was little, my dad would read to me. There was my favorite book from childhood was this book called No Elephants.
Huh.
And one of the things I loved about it when my dad would read it to me is he would do different voices for all the different characters. And it was really cute. And, oh man, what other books? I still actually have all of my old books.
That's good.
From childhood that once he used to read to me. There was one about clowns. Even though clowns scare me now, there was one about... Oh, it was this family of clowns that were going on vacation.
Oh,
the clown arounds go on vacation or something like that. That it was something along those lines.
I have never heard of that.
I have it upstairs. I was just looking at it the other day. Oh my God, what else? Well, okay, there's the infamous story about my children's Bible.
Oh, yeah.
I told you the story, haven't I?
Mm-hmm.
The one where, so yeah, when I was a little kid, I had this children's illustrated Bible, and my dad was reading it, and it came to a part talking about Jacob and his donkey.
Only it didn't say donkey.
It didn't say donkey. It said Jacob's ass. And my dad was contemplating, like, okay, should I say donkey or should I say ass? And he's like, I'll just read it as is. So he kept going on about Jacob's ass, and Jacob beat his ass, and we had to stop reading because we couldn't stop laughing.
That's a good one.
Oh,
Jacob and his ass.
We still talk about that to this day.
I'm trying to remember back to, I can't recall like any specific books that mom and dad really read to me, but I remember there were certain books that a lot of my friends ended up having like big collections of back then, and book fairs back in grade school was a big deal. Oh
man, book fairs, the Scholastic book fair.
I never, they always bring you, or they always give us those little pamphlets to take home, like, hey, the book fair is coming on this specific date, and I never put two and two together. So it would always end up at the very bottom of my book bag, crunched by a whole bunch of other like textbooks, and I'd be like, oh shoot, the book fair was like last week. But all my other friends, they would buy like Goosebumps books and all kinds of other cool little Scholastic books. So
okay, this is gonna sound really weird, but I remember how the what do you call it, the flyer or the booklet for the Scholastic book fair. I remember how that smelled.
Yeah, they used like a very specific type of ink or something.
I know that sounds really weird, but I remember how that smells.
Yep. Yeah, I always liked the book fair, even though I was just like, oh, dang it, I didn't bring any money to buy anything. Oh, crap.
Oh, no, that was like one of my favorite things.
One of the big ones I remember back in, I think it was 5th or 6th grade, we were like obsessing over the Stinky Cheese Man. Apparently that was a big book back then. We were like, oh, hey, Stinky Cheese Man.
See, that's what I never got into.
Really?
Surprisingly, for as much as I love cheese, I did not get into the Stinky Cheese Man.
Trying to think what that was about. So, but I know everybody was giggling and snickering like, oh, Stinky Cheese Man, it's hilarious.
See, I remember as a kid, my mom would take me to the library with her because my mom was an avid reader too. And I remember her specifically, like she would like lay in bed, completely under the covers, like her head was covered and she'd be reading. And I can't do that because I get like claustrophobic, but yeah, she would read. She read a lot of like romance and self-help books, but she read a lot. And then we would we'd go to the Norton Library, Barberton Library, Wadsworth. I would always go with her. Yeah. And then like my dad used to joke around that there were like wanted posters because my mom always had late fees at the library. But yeah, she took me all the time.
I did. My mom and dad would take me to the library over in Alliance as well. It's Robin Public Library over there. And there were two different ones. There was one that was in Carnation Mall, which is no longer there. I think they moved that to a different location. And then there's the one that's downtown. And that was the bigger one that was downtown. And I never really went to rent books. I went to rent like VHS tapes. And I'd watch like Disney movies and all kinds of stuff like that. So, but yeah, they had a really big children's section. I think I rented a few, I think maybe Dr. Seuss books or something like that once upon a time. And those books actually remind me more of my dentist visits. Because of all places, the dentist in town had a whole bunch of Dr. Seuss books in the waiting room. And I remember just kind of pouring through that when they went to go check and see if I had like any cavities, which I usually had none because I have good teeth. So, woohoo.
I remember... Oh, I remember going to the library. I would get books on tape because that was the thing back then. Children, books on tape. I would always get the American Girl doll books on tape. And the specific one, Meet Molly. I would listen. I don't know why. I loved listening to that one.
I'm trying to think like if there was any I listened to back then too. Can't really think of any.
Okay. I think I talked about this on, I can't remember if I talked about this on one of the podcasts or not. Kind of like an audiobook, but I have a vivid memory of this. It was on a record. It was E.T. and Michael Jackson.
Oh.
And it was like Michael Jackson was telling a story, like, I don't know if it was the story of E.T. or it was like a story, some sort of story revolving in that universe, but I specifically remember listening to that. Huh. And like, I remember thinking Michael Jackson's voice was relaxing, like when he was reading the story. So I know I'm not crazy. It exists. I Googled it recently.
Just trying to imagine Michael Jackson meeting E.T. E.T. Come on, phone home.
Oh my god,
so good.
But I swear, that is a real thing. It exists.
I've never heard of that one before.
I know, because I remember when I was a kid, I still love E.T.
Yeah.
My first birthday party was E.T. themed. I loved it, and my parents must have bought it.
I remember, for some reason, like in earlier grade school, we read some very kind of dark story arc books, like a lot of ones that were like The Big Friendly Giant, or what was the one about like the girl had like a ribbon around her neck and like they removed the ribbon, like her head fell off.
Oh my god, yeah.
I'm like, another one where a kid got turned into a mouse and he couldn't turn back out of a mouse. I'm like, this is just traumatizing.
I remembered this recently because I saw a TikTok video about it. There was a story, and we read it in school, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember what it's called. Mm-hmm. But the boy in the story, he loved chocolate, and everything he touched turned to chocolate.
Oh, it's kind of like a Midas thing.
Kind of like Midas, but with chocolate. Because I remember like one scene in the book, he was drinking from the water fountain.
Oh my god, I remember this book.
Yeah, and it tasted like chocolate, and everything turned to chocolate. And I cannot remember what that book's called. Huh. Hold on, Google.
But now that you bring that up, I do faintly remember that one.
I remember reading it.
I don't know the name of it, but I remember reading that story in particular. Wow.
Hold on, I'm Googling it.
Yeah, had the chocolate Midas touch. Did you ever go or dive into like any Greek stories or anything like that all throughout your grade school years? I think we like reenacted, a play from like, how the Greek gods came to power, like Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon. But as far as like reading the Odyssey, no way.
I remember learning, I remember the story of Persephone and Hades.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Okay, back to the chocolate book.
Yeah.
So I see a couple, Chocolate Fever and The Chocolate Touch. I think The Chocolate Touch, that might have been it.
Chocolate Touch. I mean, it kind of sounds like it. Anything you touch turns to chocolate.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's The Chocolate Touch.
Okay.
But yeah.
That's going back down the ways.
But yeah, I completely forgot about that one. But going back to like the Greek myths and stuff. But yeah, I remember learning about Persephone and Hades, like reading that story.
Yeah, because I don't think we covered like any other type of like, Greek tragedy or like, reenactment. Even Shakespeare, I don't think we really dived into all that much.
We read parts of the Odyssey.
Really? Yeah, we never did.
I mean, I took Latin, so...
Oh, yeah, they probably covered in that one then.
Which, again, I took Latin for 3 years, and I don't really remember much of it, sadly.
I'm trying to think if we actually had, like, a school newspaper back in the day, too. So, I don't know if we did in, like, elementary school, but I think in, like, high school we had a paper.
I think our paper was called the Nortonian. Pretty sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure what West Branch had theirs be called, but I know we had one. I don't know if it was, like, a monthly newsletter type thing, because I don't think we had, like, a regular newspaper.
But I'm thinking other books in school.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember reading, one of my couple favorite books, A Wrinkle in Time. I read that in 6th grade, and that was like a core memory for me because I vividly remember my teacher, we reading passages from that book. And actually my copy of A Wrinkle in Time was the one I had from 6th grade. My teacher let me keep it because she knew I liked it so much. And then The Giver. Did you ever read The Giver?
It sounds familiar. I might have read that one.
Very dystopian setting, but it was such a good book. Again, another book I vividly remember reading.
Yeah, like I said, for some reason we had some very dark books. Like I remember reading My Brother Sam is Dead. I'm just like, ugh. Or like Where the Red Fern Grows. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Or like, those are all just downers.
Death of a Salesman. I remember reading that. That one's by Arthur Miller. That one's pretty sad.
Yeah. Yeah, no surprise why I didn't read all that much growing up. All they gave us were like tragedies and sad stories and like, traumatizing books. It's like,
I remember reading we had to read Shakespeare plays. Like we did Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet.
Yeah.
Did we do Othello? Maybe we did Othello. Oh, what was the one? Oh, Great Expectations. The book Great Expectations.
Yep.
Did you ever have to read that one?
Never read it.
With Miss Havisham?
Nope.
Wow.
Nope. We ended up reading, I think, Scarlet Letter. I think we kind of like reenacted out in
we read
freshman
Scarlet
year.
Letter.
So we did that one. Trying to go back through all the different ones.
To Kill a Mockingbird, Uncle Tom's Cabin.
That we did read, I think, yeah.
Mark Twain.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oliver Twist.
Don't think we read Oliver Twist.
I read all. Actually, funny story. One time when I cleaned out my car a while ago, I still had my copy of Oliver Twist in my car. Yeah.
Classic. Yeah, I actually got, I think, more into reading and everything else probably after high school. So when I kind of went through my college years and just, kind of in our married life here, I obviously got more into, all that stuff. Not to mention, too, I worked for a newspaper for 11 years, so I did tons of reading anyway, especially with sports articles and stuff like that. So,
well, I remember besides reading the required stuff for class, I would always read my own books. Like I would always bring a different book to school with me.
Yeah.
And I remember my teacher, Mr. Vale, he convinced me to take AP English my senior year because he told me, he's like, you could do it. And Mr. Vale, I think I've told you stories about Mr. Vale. He would always be covered in chalk. Like chalk dust everywhere. He would just, be covered in chalk dust. And just to get our attention, he would always go, class, really loud.
Smack it and the chalk go flying everywhere.
Well, he'd smack his hand on his thigh and the chalk dust would go everywhere. Or he would just, he'd have a book in his hand and he'd slam it and go, class, what do you think of this passage, class? But he convinced me to take AP English my senior year. And I remember I was so intimidated because I didn't think I'd be good enough for it. And I did really well.
Nice. That's good.
With Mr. McBride. He was my AP English teacher my senior year.
Yep. I'm trying to remember my freshman year English teacher. I think Mr. Lackey. So he was always big on giving bonus points. So he's like, for a bonus point, he'd throw you a little Nerf ball, and you catch it, and then you have to answer a question about a book we read or something. So, did pretty well in his class. So,
but then because I saw this stat the one time. So speaking of reading in high school, that the majority of people after they graduate from high school never pick up another book again. And I wonder if that's because, people just don't find the books that they like. Because when you're in school, it's okay, you're forced to read this book.
Yeah.
And this book, and this book. And it might not be a book that you like or a genre that you like.
I think it's also the changing of what's available now, because before, reading was almost a necessity for a lot of people, hence newspapers. They were literally the main source of how everybody gets information and knows what's going on in the world. Now look what's happened to newspapers. They've all kind of gone by the wayside.
They're all digital.
And everything, a new media has evolved from the dawn of the internet, where everything is, it's either pictures or little micro short videos or, entire news segments where people are just broadcasting the news to you, even radio. Yeah. And, that's why newspapers have kind of gone by the wayside. Had they, unless they're the bigger ones that adapted and actually have an online presence, which usually they're behind a paywall. But a lot of newspapers, like the one I was part of, they went extinct, basically. Yeah. They got absorbed into larger conglomerates or just completely fizzled out. So, but once again, I think, a lot of the younger generations now have kind of grown up with instant, video media, and that's how they learn. So there was an interesting thing I saw on TikTok too, where it's you always see these little AI played out stories, and right below it is like Subway Surfer or some little mini game that's going on, and that holds the kids' attention while they're listening to a story, and that helps them receive information a lot quicker than just reading words. So once again, it's a new learn style of all this.
It's funny too, even I've adapted. So okay, my entire life I was an ebook hater.
Oh yeah.
I did not want an ebook.
Always wanted a physical copy of everything.
I didn't want a Kindle. I didn't want a Nook. I wanted nothing to do with it.
Yep. See, I always liked e-readers.
But I have been convinced, finally. Mm-hmm. And I have to say I do. I still prefer a physical copy of a book. I think I always will. Mm-hmm. But the convenience of a Kindle is nice.
Yep.
Because, some of the books I read are huge.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so much easier to just have your Kindle.
And not to mention more cost effective too, more times than not, because instead of all the print fees and everything to get in that book shipped to you, it's just an instant click. You save I forget how much percentage of what the book would cost, and it gets ported instantly right to your little device, and it's got hours of battery life. So that's why I kind of like them.
My Kindle has yet to die.
Yep, ever since you got it back at Christmas time?
November, I think. Yeah. And that's another thing I did because of TikTok, because so many people had Kindles, and I was seeing the price differences, and it's a major problem I'm having is I'm running out of storage space for my books. Yep. And now it's okay, now I can just have all these thousands of books on my tablet.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Plus you could probably upgrade external storage and everything. And the other thing too was Kindle or ebook exclusive books. Mm-hmm. If a person is just a straight up physical copy reader, you don't have access to like, reading like any new book that comes out for a Kindle exclusive or an ebook reader exclusive book.
You can read it on your phone.
Yeah, but it's like
so small.
really small by comparison.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to get an e-reader, so one of my new favorite book series, it's called The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
2 novellas from that series were ebooks only. And I got them both, and I read them on my phone, and I'm like, I'd rather read these on a Kindle. And I did, when I got my Kindle, I reread them.
Yeah, it's a game changer. So I've always kind of, like I said, I've liked e-readers. Even though I was always a newspaper guy and everything like that, like I still prefer seeing like everything up on a computer screen or just like a handy little tablet. So I've kind of like adjusted to the times. I like those a lot better. So, and I think there's a lot of younger generations that feel that way too.
Yeah. But back to the thing where people are saying, like, they don't read anymore after high school. But, yeah, I just wonder if they were introduced to different genres because, like, yeah, you might not like reading the classics, but, like, okay, there's so many awesome, like, sci-fi books or romance books or fantasy books.
They probably never got to experience that. Yeah, missed opportunities there. That's kind of like, I ended up finding more of my, interest and everything after I was done with high school than I was in high school because I had more time to kind of, like, do whatever. So, and once again, we go to bookstores constantly, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, and we go pick out, like, random books here. And we have quite the collection now with the Leatherbound collection and then the, Gothic Fantasy collection.
Yeah.
So, got a pretty good emporium upstairs.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm running out of room.
So, but yeah, the ebooks will help with that. But that kind of goes back to, the thing we were kind of talking about before where it's like, is it better to read words or to listen auditorily to audiobooks? And is that considered reading a book?
I still think it's considered reading a book because
there's a lot of people that don't.
I know, and it's like you're still absorbing the information.
That's how I feel too. Like it's still technically you're like, gathering that information that's from this type of, story.
Well, so since you've been narrating audiobooks, I've been getting more into audiobooks.
Oh yeah.
And thank God for Libby, the Libby app. Oh my gosh. So Libby's a library app, and you basically, it's like the library on your phone. And I've rented so many audiobooks from Libby in the last several months, and it's been awesome.
Yep. I still advocate for Audible because I'm a narrator for Audible, and we actually get compensation for anybody who buys our books. So, yeah, I'm going to, obviously champion Audible over, any other, audiobook, service out there. So, if you get a chance, check out Audible. Woohoo. And we'll talk a little bit, too, about my most recent book. I think it's a good time to segue into that right now. So this is a big one that I've been working on pretty heavily throughout the month of the back half of January into basically the first half of February. It is called Raven's Lament, and it is a fantastic book by Frank Taliber is the author. So it's actually about a journalist. So, yeah, similar type.
Very appropriate.
Yeah, I was just like, wow, fits literally like typecast. Woohoo. But, yeah, about a journalist that goes up to Canada and kind of finds himself in, a very native territory called the Haida tribe. So he goes there and tries to learn their culture and things like that, and all kinds of supernatural stuff happens. And he ends up awakening or bumping into, an old deity of the Haida, belief, and it turns into this wild ride of an adventure. There's all kinds of crazy voices. It's the most extensive work I've ever done for an audiobook, doing multiple different characters, and
it's your best one yet, I think.
You really think so?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you because you've really showcased your
absolutely.
Your talent.
That's it. Exactly. I've showcased the repertoire of all my talents of different voices and everything. I have really embodied a lot of these characters, and I think I've done an outstanding job. So that'll be going live, I think, in the should be the first week of March here, but if you get a chance to check it out, Raven's Lament by Frank Taliber and narrated by me, Eric Brown. Definitely check that one out.
Yeah, when it goes live, definitely check it out because I think it's, I might be biased, but I really think you did a really good job on that one.
And once again, because I've posted little snippets of me in the recording booth, recording that thing, doing Raven's voice, like the main antagonist of the story. And even doing the transatlantic accent. And even an old man. And all kinds of things like that. So you get kind of a taste of
It sounds really good.
Yeah, but it's, once again, staying in character for that long a time through multiple chapters and then going away from certain characters and coming back chapters later. You have to, go and, bring back that energy of just like, okay, how did this character sound? So it was a very interesting challenge, and I was definitely up to the task. I thought I knocked it out of the ballpark. It was fun. So, and I hope the listeners enjoy it. So I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Well, I'm going to plug you on my TikTok too. So
absolutely. So it's going to be, it'll be a good little roller coaster ride here.
Yeah.
So, but that's definitely my most extensive work. If you get the chance to, check out any of my other audiobooks I've narrated, because I've narrated well over 30 at this point. So I've done lots of travel books, success stories from local business leaders, poems, oh my gosh, you name it. And most recently, backyard quail raising.
Yeah,
apparently it's a big one.
You've done a lot or several books about like animals.
Animal raising. When those things are some of my best sellers. People just love knowing how to like raise animals in their backyard. I mean, I think a lot of our generation, the millennials, they like to get into homesteading and everything. And they like to grow their own eggs, especially with egg prices being the way they are.
Yeah, go ahead.
So they're just like, I'll just start my own chicken coop or quail coop, and I'll just make a go of it here. So, but yeah, those have been the most recent ones I think I've gotten done. But yeah, tons of travel books, and I am fantastic when talking about food guidebooks. So there's been a lot of those all over the world. So Bordeaux, Athens, Greece, Berlin, Germany. There's just, life is a buffet of flavor, and the world is your oyster. Indulge in it.
Now I'm hungry.
I know. I have that ability.
You have that knack when you talk about food. It makes me hungry.
Exactly. Just natural advertiser. I just, like I said, bring it up organically. So we'll talk about a food pod with more food stuff too.
But when it comes to like audiobooks and stuff,
yeah,
I prefer to listen to like biographies.
Yeah,
with audiobooks.
I've yet to do a biography actually.
You'd be good at narrating a biography.
I think so. It's just they're long and droning. So usually they're about like 13 finished hours, and that's about, to put in perspective, that's about 3 weeks to about 4 weeks worth of work in like recording and then going back and editing. So that's a lot.
Well, some of the audiobooks I've listened to recently, so I listened to this one called Sociopath, where this lady, her name's Patrick Gagney, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She talks about her experience being diagnosed as a sociopath. Yeah. And like how sociopathy.
She has no empathy at all.
Which is so strange because like listening to that audiobook, as somebody like and you'll agree, I am extremely empathetic. And
so you just can't wrap your head around the fact that like somebody has no empathy at all.
And I mean, I have a hard time, like, how could you not feel sympathy? Like, because sometimes, and even people in my life who I know I probably shouldn't feel sympathy for, I do, or just like...
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. You're a natural empath. You naturally feel emotion for...
I'm like those people, like, I see people crying, it makes me want to cry. So listening to this book talking about her experience, how she just literally feels nothing, was interesting.
Yeah.
And then I listened to another one called The Plague and I by Betty McDonald. She talks, this was like in the early 30s and 40s, how she got tuberculosis. Oh. And her experience being in a sanatorium when she had tuberculosis and all the crazy things they did to treat people.
There's that one book that I keep seeing over at Barnes & Noble, which I know you've read and says it's fantastic. It's like The Immortal Life of So-and-so.
Oh, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Yeah. I love that book.
Because it's based on what cell research from her, like genes or genetics or something like that.
I could go on a soapbox about this book. Okay,
yeah. But I know that's one of your favorites.
So I'll try to make it quick. So Henrietta Lacks, so she was, this was maybe in the 50s, I think in the 50s or 60s. I think it was the 50s. So Henrietta Lacks, she was a black woman in the South. Yeah. And she had cervical cancer, like a very aggressive cervical cancer. And they took, without her knowledge or consent, they took samples from her cervix, like the cancer cells in her cervix. The family, nobody knew that they did this. But the weird thing is her cells didn't die. Oh. They literally just kept multiplying. Oh. And to the point where her cells, they're called HeLa cells, they've been used to make so many medical treatments. Polio vaccine, cancer treatments, all kinds of medical research. I mean,
all based from her cells.
Most recently, the COVID vaccine. So her cells have been used in so many different medical treatments, but her family was dirt poor. Her family struggled. And like this woman, nobody knew who she was buried in an unmarked grave. So the family never saw any compensation for all of this medical breakthrough using their family members for her DNA.
Crazy.
And I believe they went to court and they reached a settlement, which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved
time. My gosh.
That was a book like I was really, really drawn into.
Sounds like a good read.
And then another book, audiobook I listened to, since we're talking about like nonfiction history stuff.
Yeah.
I just finished this one. It was called The Missing Kennedy.
Oh, yeah. The one that got lobotomy. Rosemary Kennedy?
So yeah, it was a book about Rosemary Kennedy.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've actually written a report about that back in college, so I know that story pretty well.
So long story short, she got lobotomized.
Mm-hmm.
Her dad basically forced her to get a lobotomy when she was in her early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was born, she had some developmental delays. She had learning disabilities, which back then they did not
There wasn't
know.
the science behind it like there is today.
No, not at all. And she went to special schools, and her family noticed she was lagging behind her siblings. And she was in Europe for a while.
Yeah.
Had some freedom. She had a special tutor. She went to a special school. She got some freedom. When she came back to America, she was lashing out. She was having a hard time adjusting to life back in America. So she was lashing out. Her family thought her behavior was embarrassing. And because especially her father, he was more worried about his political career than helping his daughter. So yeah, he went and got her lobotomized. And it left her incapacitated for the rest of her life. And it makes me so angry, because in some ways I can't help but wonder if Joe Kennedy knew this would be the outcome, because at the time when she got she got her lobotomy, there were like 100 cases of them, and all of them were bad.
Oh, yeah.
All of them were bad. And I can't help but wonder if her father knew the outcome would be bad, but he wouldn't have to worry about his daughter ruining his reputation. So she spent the rest of her life in an institution. And she, like, after the lobotomy was done, she couldn't walk, she couldn't talk. And the nurse who was involved in her lobotomy, who was there, was so traumatized, she quit nursing altogether and never returned to nursing, because she was horrified of what happened to Rosemary.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was, as I was listening to that, I was just like, oh my God. Could you imagine? Like, you're literally strapped on a table and you're awake and they're drilling into your head.
Yep, and basically chopping off part of your brain.
Well, so basically what they did to her, drill holes in her. Sorry, I know you get icky or you get squeamish with medical things.
Yeah.
So they drilled,
I know the story. So.
But yeah, they drilled holes in her head and they start cutting parts of your brain and they make you sing.
Yep.
And they ask you questions, they make you sing, and they did the fourth cut in her frontal lobe, and they knew they fucked up because she was gone.
Yep.
And, sorry, soapbox, sorry.
Yep. No, like I said, I've read that story before back in my college days, so yeah, I know all about that one.
And of course, most of the lobotomies that were done, the guys who did her lobotomy, they went on to do thousands more. The majority of them were on women.
Yep. Science gone awry.
Yes.
And then they realized later, oh shit, they fucked up. And yep.
As you can
Tale as
see.
old as time.
And then, there was the whole thing with the ice pick lobotomy, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Yep. But yeah, once again, chaos theory. So
Just because you could, it doesn't mean
you should.
You should.
100%.
But books like that, like listening to books like that, really capture but it captures my attention more so than just sitting and reading it, because I feel like I don't know why. It's just I do better with those with audiobooks.
Tell you what, like all the audiobooks that I've narrated though, I tend to get very captivated, especially doing like the travel guidebooks and everything I've done. Like I'm interested about like world traveling and just like the different cultures and everything. And it really is a fascinating insight and look into all these different, places and how they live their lives. And a lot of them are called like Travel Like a Local, greater than a tourist and stuff like that. And it's all from the perspective of a local that kind of guides you around the area. And it really is an interesting, look behind the curtain in a lot of different cultures here. And it's fascinating to learn. So even local stuff, because I know we're based in Ohio. I did a West Virginia tour guide book too. And I learned a lot about just like even local culture. Like down there, they love pizza rolls. Apparently that's a huge, delicacy down there. Because I guess there's a lot of coal miners. And like they would be, during their lunch breaks, they would go and like get some pepperoni rolls. And they would eat that. And
we talked about doing a thing, you and I, where we go to the places that you narrated books about.
Every single, narration that I've done, that basically it's like a bucket list. And we go visit that place. And I 100% think we're going to do that. So... I'm trying to think of some of the other ones I've done so far. But like I said, this recent one I did is my first like thriller mystery book, which I am just beyond excited about because I'm trying to go into different genres. I have done a couple children's books too. That's the other one too.
Oh yeah, genre. You did.
And those ones have actually been selling decently well because once again, you do all the goofy voices and people like really get into it. So
yeah, you did do some cute voices for that one.
So there was one, Rocky the Raccoon, and then there was like I think it was an alien. Greetings. Blah.
No, you did good on those.
Yeah, I mean it was not as not as involved as Michael Jackson meets E.T., but hey,
I swear that's real.
E.T. That's a wild one. Oh my gosh.
But so now let's to segue into like the popularity of books now. Because remember, when we were probably in like high school, I remember there was a real fear of like bookstores closing.
Oh yeah.
Because I remember
there were some that did like Borders.
Gone. Rest in peace, Borders.
And we had Walden Books, which is kind of like I guess owned by Borders. That was over in Carnation Mall. So that's where I go and pick up like certain books, like the Harry Potter books. Like they sold them over at Walden Books.
Well, my uncle used to be the manager of B. Dalton Books in Tower City in Cleveland. Yep. So B. Dalton's when we lost. And I remember, people were worried that Barnes & Noble would shut down. But now, with the emergence of TikTok and BookTok, Barnes & Noble's opening 50 more stores.
Yep.
Because of TikTok.
Yep. And once again, incredible natural advertising. Because everybody posts about like, hey, I've read this book, you should check it out too. And people get talking about it. Word of mouth gets around. And that's honestly more effective, I think, than, than a lot of other means for advertising. It's kind of like, this is kind of segueing off here, but you ever heard of the chicken sandwich wars? Apparently that was it's all the fast food places. They all basically, are vying for power over like, everybody getting a chicken sandwich to compete with Chick-fil-A. Apparently, Popeye's the first one to kind of like, draw the first blow against Chick-fil-A. And they're like, we have a chicken sandwich too. Chick-fil-A came out and posted like, 2 buns, chicken, and, a pickle equals love. And then I guess there was a tweet from Popeye said, y'all good? That one tweet generated millions of dollars worth of advertising from that one tweet. And I feel like BookTok is very similar, along with all the other social media things, because everybody talking about, certain books that are popular or what's hot and new, like that generates so much like free advertising in a lot of ways.
Well, because I remember I started seeing stuff about BookTok like well over a year ago. And I just kind of lurked. Like, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a cool book. I found some, like, part of the reason I read the Fourth Wing books was because of TikTok, which I have mixed feelings about that book series. It's not the best. But I lurked for a while, and, like, actually, a girl I went to high school with, her name's Tiffany, I saw she made her own BookTok account. And she started posting. And I've always kind of wanted to dabble in, like, social media, like, content creation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, more so than, like, Instagram. And I'm like, maybe I should just try it. But I was always too self-conscious to do it. Like, I'm like, okay, I feel stupid sitting here talking to my phone. Like, who's going to listen to me?
Honestly, just like how I started this pod, just jump in and do it.
And then I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, if any of my friends and family see this, they're going to think it's stupid or it's going to be cringy or they're going to think I'm cringy. But it was back in June. One day in June, I just decided, like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to start posting on BookTok. I made an account, and I started posting, and it's been really enjoyable.
Yep. That's what I mean. Start something new. You never know where it takes you.
I mean, like I said, I don't have a massive following. I'm just doing it for fun.
But honestly, just starting off, like, you even had, like, just a couple hundred. Now it's over 1,000. And then pretty soon, like I said, it grows.
Well, and one of the coolest things that's happened since I joined BookTok is I had an indie author reach out to me about doing an ARC read, which is an advanced reader copy of a book. So her name's Allison B. Emery. She sent me an advanced reader copy of her book, and I got to read it. And obviously they want you to post your review on your thoughts of the book, but I thought that was so cool.
That is really cool.
You send me this book for free. That's amazing, and you trust me enough to review it. And actually, I need to do another video because she sent me another one of her books. I have to do a review on it. But, like, the book she sent me, it's called Violet's Kismet. It's about this, it's a young adult book, but, like, the main character, Violet, she's, like, 17 years old. She finds out she can see supernatural things, which was cool.
Yeah.
And recently, I had another indie author. She sent me 2 books in her series. And just to review, and I really enjoyed them. Her name's C.E. Foltz, and it's the book series she sent me. It's called the Paradox Legion. And it's basically about time travel and space.
Oh, yeah.
Really good.
I feel like I get into that one.
I really, really enjoyed it. And it's like, it's been so cool. I'm like, these authors are just sending me their books.
Yep. And that's obviously, I go through that with Audible as well because, I get to know the authors. You audition, and then, the author basically sends you like a copy of their digital manuscript. And, I actually have pretty good rapport with all the authors that I've narrated for. They seem very, very pleased with all my work and everything. And a lot reach out to me just, for return work and everything. And just, one even said like, hey, if you're ever in Canada, come hang out and we'll grab a drink or something. I'm like, that's awesome. So it's kind of cool the fact that like we were able to like interact with different authors and the different types of things that we're doing now. I think that's so cool.
And like I've discovered so many because there's a lot of indie authors on TikTok. Like so indie authors that don't go through like the traditional huge publishing houses. Yeah. And I've found so many good books. Like there's one I read, sci-fi book called Oh Dreamer Mine. It was about humanity. Like they go to Mars. Like there's a group that go to Mars and they're trying to study Mars, and they find this sentient plant. And basically, long story short, they should have left it alone because the story just got crazy. This plant just
went out of control.
Awesome, but it was by his name's Nicholas Turner. Really enjoyed that book. But yeah, there's like so many. I just had the fact that these authors like feel confident enough in me to like send me their books. Yeah, I'm like, that's really cool. Thank you.
Well, once again, they're trying to they're excited because they've created a work of art that they want to share with the world. I get that because I feel that as a a narrator too. I poured all this hard work and everything. It's just like I want to like shout from the rooftops like, hey, check this out. It is really cool. And once again, BookTok does an excellent job word of mouthing and advertising. And it just gets the word out. And once again, like you said, helps Barnes & Noble sell all these books.
And I'm not going to lie. Like, when I first started seeing stuff about BookTok, I had a very negative view of it. Because all I was seeing, and I'm not trying to be offensive to people who like these type of books, it's all these, like, dark romance, smutty books. And I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, these books aren't very good. Okay, these books are getting popular. Okay. And I'm just like, okay, I don't want anything to do with that. But I have since found out there are so many different parts. Yep. Like
different people into different genres of different books.
I'm more into like fantasy and sci-fi stuff. So my core group, like most of the stuff I tend to see is that.
It's different subculture communities within that book. Because that's what I mean. BookTok takes on a bad rap just because of the worst common denominator. Kind of like, anime does in a lot of ways. Everybody just thinks, oh, anime is just like vulgar, borderline porn crap. And it's like,
I know, but like sometimes it's like, do I think that those books are necessarily like the greatest books in the world? No. I mean, to be very honest, I've tried to read some of those dark romance books.
But once again, like a lot of people get into that type of stuff.
But it's making people read more.
Yeah. But once again, okay, going back to in history, because I like to talk about history stuff. I've done a few history books as well. So I've done a World War II book and I've done a Vietnam book, which is fun. Talking about one of our founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin. Did you know before he actually wrote Poor Richard's Almanac and all the other pamphlets he did, he wrote sex tabloids?
Yes, I did know that.
Sex sells. So
it goes all the way back then?
Yeah, exactly. Way back then. And once again, that's how he got his start. In a very weird way, like that was an actual thing.
So I did try to read some of the more popular dark romance books. Oh my God. Like it's, woo. I'm sorry.
Pretty raunchy.
They're incredibly raunchy to the point where for me, it's just like, no.
Feels a bit much.
Okay. One book I tried to read was a book called Credence. It's like your cabin in the woods. I'm like, ooh, okay, this is like a thriller, cabin in the woods thriller. Okay, so I thought I'd like this book.
But I feel like it goes like, down the Evil Dead hole.
Oh no, it's so this girl goes to a cabin with her step uncle and her step cousins, and they all have
deliverance.
They all have sex with her, and I'm like, the pseudo incest does not do it for me. So that was a big old no.
Once again, Game of Thrones is like that. They basically glorified incest, and I still think.
Why is that?
I still think once again the author puts a little bit of like their own ideas of like what they, dare I say, fantasize about, or a little bit of like subconsciously like want to like, I don't know, express out. They put a bit of themselves into their writing, I feel like. And that's why I kind of like lift my eyebrow a little bit when I read Martin's stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness. Because all the incest and the sex and all that stuff.
I know,
in there,
and the violence against women and the incest in Game of Thrones is kind of enough to make me like not want to continue that.
Yeah, but here's the thing: it was the best like HBO program. I mean, outside of Sopranos.
I mean, there were things I love about Game of Thrones. Don't get me wrong, but yeah,
the ending, forget it.
Yeah.
But once again, I read the first book of Game of Thrones, but that is it's a slog. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Well, but yeah, just going back to books that I've read because of TikTok. Mm-hmm. One of the worst books I've ever read in my life, and you know what book I'm talking about, because I returned it.
Yep.
I read this book called Gothicana. Mm-hmm. I kid you not, it was... I had a visceral cringe reaction when I was reading that book. I only got about 70 pages in that book. Mm-hmm. I couldn't go on anymore. It was so bad. The dialogue was bad.
I'm just like, nope.
I'm sitting, and I was laughing when it was supposed to be funny. It was so bad I was laughing. So I got 70 pages in, and I remember the next day I took it back to Target. I've never returned a book in my life.
Yep. Sometimes you can judge a book by its cover.
Well, here's the thing. It looks pretty. If you look at Gothicana, it's like a beautiful
once
book.
Again, like I was saying, it's just like, oh yeah, it's pretty, but...
And that's why I am leery to this day of reading books that have sprayed edges, because here was this pretty book. Ooh, has pretty pictures and sprayed edges, and it's going to be cool, and it was
maybe
terrible.
That was a way to compensate for the lackluster of narrative.
But that's what I mean. I'm like, okay, maybe some of these pretty covers are like trying to conceal that, oh, this is a crap book. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case of all, because I have some sprayed edge books that are very nice.
Yep.
But yeah, there's some doozies on there. There's one called Haunting Adeline. I know a lot of people on TikTok love that book, and if you love that book, that's great for you. I personally don't get it because the guy in the book is an absolute stalker and a creep and a weirdo, and I just do not get it. And he sexually assaults her.
There's some people that just like the pursuit, which is weird, but okay, to each their own.
To each their own. Like, if that is a book that you like, I am happy that you found a book that you like, but that is just not for me.
Yeah. Like you said,
not for me.
Stalker zone there, so.
Yeah, I don't. That's a thing. Like, there's all the thing with TikTok now. There's all these different tropes that are popular, and some of them are good. Just things that add to the book.
Here's the thing: everybody's got their personal preference when it comes to book reading.
Yeah,
so that's why, once again, you talk about the different categories of different communities are part of we like this type of book, we like that type of book, and those type of books. So
if you want to read your books about your shadow daddies and your stalker dudes, have at it. That's good. I don't care. But me personally, that's not a book I tend to gravitate to.
Yep.
I like books about dragons and magic and
I do too.
Sci-fi and.
But like I said, okay, the big one because you always talk about what are your favorite books I get into? For me, obviously, the embodiment is Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
That I read after it was during my college days. You actually got me the collection of Lord of the Rings, and I dove heavy into that stuff. So. Getting big into those type of fantasy books, that really opened my eyes to a whole new world of interesting. And I've yet to do a fantasy narration.
You would do so good.
I know. I've tried auditioning for a bunch, but just never got one yet. And apparently one of the bigger sellers is a thing called lit RPGs are really big now.
Oh man, yes.
They're immensely long. I've seen them upwards of 26 to 50 finished hours for an audiobook is just massive.
One of my favorite books I read last year was Dungeon Crawler Carl. That's a lit RPG.
Lit RPG. And once again, I hear from so many people, you got to do lit RPGs. And I've tried auditioning for a bunch. Just, once again, narrators, they try to gobble those things up because they are very popular right now.
Well, so Dungeon Crawler Carl, I laughed so hard at that book. So basically, so
many people give it good reviews, too.
If you like video games or Dungeons and Dragons video games type things, you'd like it.
I gotta pick it up.
But so Carl, basically what happens, Carl is one of the last surviving humans because in the book humanity so basically humanity the planet Earth gets smushed. So if you were in a building when it happened, you got smushed, you dead. So if you were outside, you were fine, but if you were in a building, you got smushed and you're dead. Because the aliens came to Earth to do this.
The shrinkway or something?
So Carl and his girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, end up on this intergalactic game show where he's going through a dungeon to survive. But yeah, so Princess Donut the cat gains the ability to talk. So Carl and Princess Donut go on this wild whirlwind adventure, and it's amazing.
Sounds like something that's up my alley. So
you should read it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then like Carl gets like this ability to like it's like basically like a screen in his head and like achievements pop up, and it's so funny.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of intertwining with like video games and like all kinds of like Dungeons and Dragons type references.
Yes.
So,
but it's
hence
really
the Dungeon
funny.
Crawler. So
Apparently, it's like a 7-book series.
But they're not all out yet, though, are they?
I think they are.
All of them? Oh,
Yeah,
really?
and I had no idea, so I'm going to have to catch up on that because I've only read the first one, but it's so funny.
I've seen a couple of them, I think, when we went over to that new Barnes & Noble over in Canton. I think they had a few of them kind of displayed there.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite books I read last year. It was really funny.
Yeah, I got to pick that one up. Like I said, been so busy with audiobooks, I really haven't had time for, like, leisure reading.
Well, I had to read Dungeon Crawler Carl because before that, I had read this book called Babel by R.F. Kuang. Incredible book. It's like, basically, you think it's going to be a cool book about, like, these kids in the 1800s. They're going to Oxford. They're going to learn magic. And it's like, ooh, it's cool. It's so much more involved in that. I was sobbing when I finished that book. I was sobbing.
Sad twist at the end.
Sad, yes, sad ending. And I had to, I'm like, I need to read something funny.
Actually, one thing we've been kind of getting into, too, is Agatha Christie.
Yes,
because
I love
we actually saw a play just kind of like recently in town, which is really good. And I cannot usually I'm pretty good at predicting how a narrative is going to end because I've seen enough movies, seen enough media, read enough books where it's kind of like, okay, here's how this is going to play out, and usually it comes to pass. I, for the life of me, cannot predict what's going to happen in an Agatha Christie book. Like, it blindsides me every time. I'm like, my gosh, is she a good writer? Holy crap.
Well, when we went to go see the play, Witness to the Prosecution, I
thought for sure the guy was innocent.
Well, the people's reactions people literally gasped at the twist at the end.
I was sitting there just like, and the way they portrayed everything, because the actor did a phenomenal job with that. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm just like, how can you find this guy guilty? And then they get like, oh my gosh, the twists and turns at the end. It's like, what the?
But yeah, she's a great thriller mystery writer.
Fantastic. And those are quickly becoming, like, once again, because I've done an audiobook for it now, one of my newer favorites. So.
But one cool thing, too, recently that I've been trying to do, so I've been trying to go to book signings.
Meeting the authors.
Yeah, so a few months ago, I met Christopher Paolini, who wrote Aragon.
And that was at Barnes & Noble over in Fairlawn, right? Yeah,
that was a really cool experience.
I'm glad they do that type of stuff. That's really neat.
And I never did that before, and I'm like, you know what? Because Aragon was one of my favorite books, especially like in middle school. I loved Aragon. I named one of my former bearded dragons Aragon. Yep,
I remember him.
And he was super nice because I brought the new book he wrote, Murtagh.
Yeah.
And then I brought one of his sci-fi books, which I didn't know he wrote sci-fi.
What do you think of the movie that's based off his book? Did he talk about that at all? Or is he kind of like no comment?
Yeah, it was basically, he was like, what movie? Because I'm
sure that's like a sting in his heart. Though.
Well, so apparently they're trying to adapt it into a TV series, and if it's done well, I'll be thrilled.
That's what I mean, because you get more detail, and I feel like that's how Harry Potter should have been done too. Is like not as a movie, but as a whole TV series, because you get more information of like all the details of the books.
Well, and then a couple days ago, I met one of my new favorite authors in Parma.
Yep.
Her name's Samantha Shannon, and I mentioned the Bone Season series earlier, but she wrote the Bone Season. And she also wrote 2 other books called The Priory of the Orange Tree.
She pretty nice.
And A Day of Fallen Night. I felt like when SpongeBob met Kevin the Sea Cucumber.
Starstruck.
I'm like, hi, Kevin.
Like, oh my gosh, you're my favorite author.
She was super nice. The talk that she did before was really, really good. She let me take a picture with her.
Cool.
Like, because when I met Christopher Paolini, because there were so many people, like you couldn't pose for a picture.
Yeah.
But like the staff was taking like candids.
Yeah.
So I got a picture with him. I was talking to him at his table. But yeah, I got a picture with Samantha, and I'm just like, hi, Kevin.
All the authors that, like I said, I've talked to and everything, they all seem really chill and awesome. So that's kind of cool. We have such good experiences with them.
I'm keeping my eye out. So I'm like, okay, if any of more of my favorite authors
are in town,
like,
swing by and say hi and get an autograph.
I'm gonna go. I got 3 signed books now. But yeah, that was a super cool experience.
I can imagine.
But man, there's just so many genres and different books to talk about.
It's a massive universe of written and once again spoken stories.
Well, and I think, too, because you mentioned Harry Potter, I think Harry Potter is a huge reason for kids, like especially like our generation, got into reading.
Yep, the millennial generation, we really kind of grew up with Potter, and hence why they built theme parks and, movie franchises, and, it's probably one of the more lucrative, franchises out there as far as, like, written franchises.
But yeah, because I remember, I was a mega Harry Potter fan. Like, I remember
going to midnight releases and everything, too.
I will never forget, I went to the midnight release of, I think I went to 3. I went for the 5th, the 6th, and 7th book. When the 7th book came out, I went to the midnight release. It was at Barnes & Noble. Picked it up, went home, read 100 pages of it before I went to sleep. I woke up, and I read the entire rest of the book in one day. And I remember my eyes were blurry because I was
You're so transfixed. So like, I gotta know how the story ends. At least with Harry Potter, you got closure.
Yeah.
Although the way it happened, like with Harry destroying the Elder Wand, I hate that. I think that's so dumb. I'm just like, I realize the symbolism of casting away the power and blah 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 blah. I'm just like, you literally have all the Deathly Hallows. You can literally be immortal, and the guy's just like, no. I'm like. So it's almost like very reminiscent of Rose in the Titanic movie, where she has the heart of the ocean and
she could have been a freaking millionaire.
Kerplunks it right into the freaking ocean. It's just like,
girl. So
you let your entire family basically barely string by. You like basically suffer all throughout like your life. You have this multi-million-dollar gem you could have sold and basically lived, perfectly luxurious for the rest of your life. But nope. I gotta throw it back in the ocean where it belongs. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I would have sold that puppy in a heartbeat. Are you kidding me?
So, yeah, very similar type of thing I feel with Harry Potter. It's like, why would you destroy the Elder Wand? The most powerful wand in the wizarding world. And just,
I have contemplated doing a reread of Harry Potter because it's been a few years since I've read the series again.
And then there's The Cursed Child.
I don't want to talk about that.
We still have yet to see the play of that.
Actually,
I think if we saw the play, it'd be a lot better.
No, I do want to talk about it because I hate it.
Yeah. I was going to say, I have yet to read that one, so I really can't really state an opinion on it.
It pissed me off because Harry...
Oh, yeah, Harry's kind of like a jerk to his kid.
Yes. It's like...
I regret you were even born.
Or like...
It's like, what the heck?
He talks shit to his son, and it's like, Harry Potter would not do that. After growing up without his own father, come on now.
Good old character destruction. Kind of gives me reminiscence of, Luke Skywalker turning into an old curmudgeon in Star Wars.
You meet the child, the secret forbidden love child of Voldemort and Bellatrix Lestrange.
Oh, of course.
Which, when did they do that? Can Voldemort, does he even have a thing to do that with? I mean, to be honest.
Well, according to Rowling, wizards used to, wave away their shit back in the 1800s.
I mean, did he just, magically make it? And then, I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, and it's like...
Well, if the Sith can create life in Star Wars, so can Voldemort, apparently.
But, so her name's, Delphi or something, and it just seems like straight out of a fan fiction to me. And I just... I remember I was so mad. The only thing I liked about it was Albus and Scorpius, Draco's son, had a cute relationship, they were friends. That's the only thing I liked about that book. I did not like the rest of it. I was mad when I read it.
Everybody's got their personal preferences on it. Like I said, I've never read that one, so I don't know if I ever will, but yeah, after everything you told me, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I have it on my shelf as a memento, but I do not like it.
I still want to see the play of it, though. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And then there's also the offshoot play called The Puffs, which talks about the Hufflepuffs during the Harry Potter stories. Fantastic comedy.
That was so funny. But yeah, that's a whole book series. I mean, that really just kind of took off. And
I mean, that probably kept a lot of bookstores in business just from that one franchise alone, which is amazing to think about. That one book series just has the power to literally just change an industry. They're literally it's an economy. That type of franchise is so massive, it generates money unto itself.
And I find that sometimes I notice this, when new books come out, or when new book series come out about magic, they're like, oh, it's the next Harry Potter. It's the next Harry Potter.
Yep, it's the benchmark. Kind of like the whole thing where it's just movies are this is the best since Lord of the Rings or whatever, the newest CG, technology is.
You know what book series I love? Percy Jackson.
Yeah, I wish they'd remake that.
Yeah, the movies.
Well, didn't they combine a couple characters? I think, into that one lady character.
Yeah, I mean, the first one wasn't bad. I mean,
I liked them. I thought they were entertaining.
The characters were too old because Percy Jackson's supposed to be like...
Percy Jackson.
Like 12.
Mm-hmm.
And in the movie...
They're all cast too old.
Yeah, they're way too old. Mm-hmm. But the second one was god-awful.
I don't know. Well, I thought I liked the movies. Like I said, they definitely deviated from the books a lot.
But I love... Those books are really great books.
Yeah. That'd be cool to meet Rick Riordan. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Rick Riordan. Oh, man, I would love to meet him.
Yeah, book signing. That'd be interesting.
You know who I would love to meet? Cassandra Clare, who wrote the Mortal Instruments books.
Yeah.
I love that. That's another book series I love.
Wish I could meet Tolkien, but he's kind of passed away.
We'd have to have a seance to do that.
Goodness. So, and I think his son, recently passed too, Christopher.
I think so.
And he basically finalized the Silmarillion, which that is a slog of a read. Which, although, if you're going to try and listen to Lord of the Rings, or rather, instead of read it, listen to it, check out on Audible, Andy Serkis does the narration for the Silmarillion, Hobbit, and Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I can't. I would love to.
I guess he gets into character like Gollum and everything, like he does in the movies. It'd be fantastic to listen to.
I want to listen to that.
Yeah, so definitely check out that one on Audible. So that's a cool little shout out there. Kevin introduced me to that one. He's just like, dude, you got to check out Andy Serkis does, Silmarillion. You're kidding. Because that is if you're reading the Silmarillion, it is just a slog. You're just like, oh my goodness, it's a rough read.
Well, speaking of fantasy, one of a newer fantasy or newer author I've gotten into, his name's Brandon Sanderson. Mm-hmm. He's super popular on TikTok, but I read a trilogy by him called the Mistborn trilogy. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. But the last book called The Hero of Ages absolutely destroyed me at the end. Yeah, I had to sit there and collect myself at the end of that book because I could not. I still think about the ending of that series, and I finished it months ago. I still think about it, but it's such an amazing fantasy series that I can't get over it.
I'm still kind of reminiscing back on Raven's Lament after just finishing that book, because that was such a spiritual journey of sorts, because I'm literally just embodying the characters. Because, okay, reading the book is one thing. Actually acting out the words on the page to bring to life these characters is a whole different type of experience for a book read. You're just literally getting into the character, giving them life through the microphone. And it is, like I said, very spiritual experience in a lot of ways. So,
well, I've seen people on TikTok do immersive reads where you read the book
out aloud and get in the character, and you listen to the audiobook at the same time. Oh, that's interesting. Which I've never done. Yeah, but there's a book by Andy Weir called Project Hail Mary. Mm-hmm. I haven't read it, but I've seen so many people say you have to do an immersive read. So, if you listen to the audiobook and read at the same time, I thought about it. The more I think about it, too, as I've gotten older here, I think I'm more of an auditory learner than I am a visual learner in a lot of ways. Because reading books, I'll tend to get sleepy. If I just sit there and read for hours on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, my eyes will get heavy. But I notice listening to an audiobook, it keeps my attention. Even driving long distance journeys, down to Florida, whenever we go on vacation, stuff like that, it keeps me alert and awake, and it makes the trip go by like a blink of an eye. It's wild. So I can retain so much more. And I think one of my favorite books to listen to was got to be The Alchemist. That one is a phenomenal book to listen to. I actually found out that was the most popular book published the year we were born. Really? Mm-hmm. Yep. Very fitting. So, and the audiobook is read by Jeremy Irons, the guy who voices Scar from Lion King. That is he does an awesome job with that one. Really gets into all the different characters and everything, and really just, paints a picture in the mind. It's wonderful. So, very theatrical, performance there by him. Outstanding job. And some of my other favorites, I think, for for audiobooks, I like The Richest Man in Babylon was a good one. One book that really transformed me during kind of my darker times of my life was The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. Yeah, a lot of people swear by that book. One of the self-help type books, but really it talks more about law of attraction, which I thoroughly believe in. So I ended up watching the DVD and then reading the book on that one, and just kind of really kind of adapted that to my life, and it has transformed my life in many ways. Mm-hmm. So that was a very transformative book for me. So definitely recommend that one. I think Jim Carrey advocates for that book too. He mentions it in the Sonic movie. Yeah. Kablooey. Kablooey. So, yeah, I'd say those are up there. I'm trying to think if there's some other books. Actually, Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It. Never Split the Difference by, I think, Chris Voss, like a former FBI director.
Yeah.
So that one's, or like I think it was like a hostage negotiator or something like that. That is a brilliant book to listen to. I think he actually narrates it too. So that one's a cool one to pick up. And it tells you about like the art of like negotiating and everything. So.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that one.
Very insightful book. Very useful.
I'm trying to think of books that like, well, I've already kind of talked about a few of the ones that have like really like wowed me.
Is there any book that you prefer in the audiobook format more than the actual written format?
So, okay, going back to BookTok and talking about some of the like dark romance smutty books. Mm-hmm. There's a really popular book called The Butcher and the Blackbird. Mm-hmm. It's a very gory novel about serial killers who basically just have sex. That's pretty much all it is.
Oh.
And the audiobook, I have to say, I didn't finish it because I'm just like, okay, it's literally the same thing. Mm-hmm. They kill somebody, they don't see each other for months, and then they do it. That's literally all it is. But the narrators were really good.
Really?
They put on a very, very good... I showed it to you the one time.
I was going to say, yeah.
The Irish guy.
Yeah. He was doing the bit of an Irish accent.
Yeah.
I went down on her. I went to go pick up a pizza. I tasted it. It tasted great. Blah, blah, blah.
But it was just... I found myself, again, listening to that. I mean, they did a good job, but then I'm, like, cringing. And then one of the parts about that book, like... Homegirl had like 1 million piercings down there.
Oh.
And I had to look up what one of them was. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know you could get that pierced.
Yeah.
A fourchette piercing.
I just remember...
I'm like, that does not sound appealing.
When you played that snippet, I remember they actually like added in like, certain background noises over the narration too. I'm like, that's interesting.
But so no, for that, I feel like if I would have just read the book, I probably wouldn't have got as far, but the narrator really
immersed you. Yep. And that's my goal as a narrator too, to get you immersed into the art. So into the words on the page there that I'm reading. So
yeah, it was just one of those things like, why am I listening to this? But I mean, the performance was good.
But that's what I mean, yeah. And that's why, like when we were going down to Florida the other time, we listened to Treasure Island done by a theatrical cast of narrators. Good. That was brilliant. I think that's an Audible exclusive too. Definitely pick up that one. And that was like, they just have like Jim Hawkins played by the one guy, and then they have like Long John Silver and everything. Oh, it was great. Great listen.
I actually I followed on TikTok the narrator. She did the voice of Violet Sorengale in Fourth Wing.
Really?
Started following her. And that's a book series that's a super, super popular series. There's 3 books
I see the
now.
books all over the place.
So, okay. Fourth Wing, it was fun.
What happened to the other 3 wings? That's my question.
But it was I mean, is it a literary masterpiece? No. The dragons were cool. I love the dragon characters. Like, it was a fun read. Iron Flame, the second book, oh my God. The main character, Violet, annoyed the shit out of me. That entire book. Her and the main male character, Zayden, had the same argument the entire book. And then they threw some random female character in there for like a jealousy trope. And I'm like, this is stupid. And now the third book, Onyx Storm. One of my TikTok friends, her name's Yanni, she sent me Onyx Storm, which I thought was super cool of her to do. And I haven't read it yet, and I'm going to, but I'll
give it a try at least.
I'll be curious to see if I like it better than Iron Flame.
Yep.
Because,
for me, with dragons, I'll stick to Skyrim, so I'm big on that one.
A Rizzler's last thoughts should be of Ohio.
Yep. So, love that. Let's get redubbed with AI. So funny. So, I need to play Skyrim pretty soon here. It's been a while since I've dived back in. There's Elder Scrolls books, too, which I still have yet to kind of read through. Kevin's read through them.
Well, that's like, because I did a video about this, like about novels based on video games.
Oh, yeah.
I've read a lot of Halo books.
Yes, and those are actually pretty good, too.
They are.
Kevin's, once again, he's our lorist, so he basically has an entire library of Halo books. So he's big onto that stuff. I've read Cryptum. I don't think I've read Primordium yet. And then there's like Selenium or something like that.
Yeah, I've read all 3 of those.
You've read that trilogy by Greg? I think it was
Greg Bear.
Yeah, Greg Bear. Yeah.
Yeah, those were really good. I enjoyed those.
Yeah, those are.
And I read The Flood.
I read The Flood, First Strike.
I read Contact
and Fall
Harvest.
of Reach.
I read Contact Harvest. That
you read Fall of Reach. That's a good one. It's Sad Tragedy. So, But those are good books.
We have a Fable book.
Oh yeah,
but I
got like a free what's that, sword or something like that in Fable 3.
We've never read it, but we just got it because we wanted the free thing. And then there's oh my god, we had another one.
I'm sure they have Assassin's Creed books too, which I've never read.
I have the Book of Cain from Diablo 3.
Oh yeah, Deckard Cain.
And I think I have another one. Ardra's something.
I use Deckard Cain's voice in the most recent audiobook too, so I think I do a pretty outstanding job there.
But yeah, it's like sometimes like I feel sad because there's people like, oh, I don't like to read, but I'm like, there's so many books out there. Like if you just gave it a chance,
right?
Like find a, I mean, sure. I mean, yeah, maybe there's. I'm sure it's like they genuinely just don't like reading, but there's so many wonderful stories out there.
But once again, and that's why I think BookTok, it gets people, or it broadcasts people that are excited about a particular book, and they kind of share what they've learned or things they like about a certain book, and that piques the interest of other people because people find that interesting. People who are like really into stuff is fascinating. So it can be even about weird food history. Like I go down the rabbit hole of that sometimes. So, but people get into that type of stuff.
Well, and I found people like their whole account are just like nonfiction books. And I found myself, I've read more nonfiction books.
Yep.
Because of that. And I found lots of different sci-fi books and fantasy books. And since June, I've probably spent more money on books than I have in a while because of that app.
Yep. It's not exactly a bad thing because, like I said, it's, stuff you enjoy.
I do enjoy it.
The big thing, like I said, I always say when a guy hits his mid-30s, you get really into smoking meats or getting into World War II history, and I definitely was already into World War II history. You have to get to smoking meats, so that'll be probably this year. Probably get a smoker. But the back half of 2024, I took on the challenge of a lot of different war books to narrate, and that was a fascinating one because I learned a lot about more of the insights of lesser-known facts about the certain wars that America fought in that I never knew about. And it was fascinating to, really kind of dive in.
See, I think when it comes to, nonfiction books, I think war history or military history is just not something that interests me.
Yeah. Oh, it is to me. It's fascinating.
For you, for sure, yes.
The Vietnam book was really eye-opening because that's one, here in America, we never really kind of talk too much about. It's almost taboo to kind of talk about because there was a lot of dark stuff that went on. And going through that book, I'm like, oh my God, my jaw was on the floor when I'm in my recording booth. This actually happened? Oh my goodness. And it was a cluster of a war. So if you ever get a chance, pick it up. Check out the audiobook, The Forgotten Pages of Vietnam. So phenomenal read. So that was a lot of fun to kind of narrate that one. So, and it's an honor to do all the different audiobooks I've done so far and continue to do. It's a true treat. As is podcasting too. This is a lot of fun.
I tell myself it might be a pipe dream, but I have a feel you're going to get successful with your audiobooks. I feel like
well, it's just hitting the right one at the right time.
And I have a pipe dream that maybe my TikTok may have enough followers I can make money off of that.
Yeah. You never know. And like I said, even the podcast has taken off. We actually had a recent... oh,
yeah, this is cool.
Someone actually reached out to us about a potential author coming on the podcast. So in another future book episode, we might actually have an author actually be a guest star in with us here in the studio.
It's our first
guest
star who's not friends or family.
So be on the lookout for that in future episodes. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. If it happens.
Yeah, I think it will. So I think it's inevitable because... And once again, we're talking about success and growth. Let's talk about the pod for a second, because this pod has gone beyond international.
Yeah.
We're seeing all the different... It's really cool when you look at the stats of everything here, because it shows the different, country flags of where everybody's tuning in from. We're getting as far as Singapore. We're getting Austria, the UK, Australia, Japan, Italy, France, Germany, all over the place, Canada even. So we are literally international with this podcast, and it has grown by leaps and bounds. So... Thank you, listeners, for tuning in and everything, too.
Yeah, we had someone from Singapore listen to every single episode.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Yep.
Whoever you are from Singapore, we
Shout
appreciate
out
you.
there. So, what we should do, too, because I have actually got promo codes for all my different audiobooks as well. We can actually probably start doing, promotional things and stuff like that. We'll look into that in future episodes as well, where I can start giving out, copies of different audiobooks I've done. So we'll look for that. And once again, if you get a chance, definitely give us a review, 5 stars if you be so kind, and give us a nice positive rating. And, follow us on our Instagram page, too. Because, like I said, we'll post, like, promotions and stuff like that in the near future here. So, I might have some, like, audiobook giveaways. That'd be kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that's about it for this pod episode. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I know it's been a while, but no, we're glad to be back and, kind of riding high into 2025 here. So, all right. Well, have a good one, and we'll see you next time on It All Depends on the Situation.